Johnson, and this is focused on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, Mount Nimba to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Pocondre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Talk about home affairs, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information, history, talking about culture, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Panelists.
And I am Anthony Sierra, plus and welcome to Focus on Liberia, the hour of politics. Anthony Sierra hosting. Ben Finn is in the house. The topic could not be so succinct. The nation Liberia, economically and in terms of development, someone would say we are not where we have to be. I am unhappy. Ben is unhappy. 177 years plus counting, and we are still talking about roads. We are still talking about bridges, and we are nowhere near any of our friends, even in the South region, in terms of being better with infrastructural development. And so the question we are asking as our topic, how can we develop Liberia in the next 20 years amidst the challenges that we see? Ben Finn is seated. He's ready to roll. Ben, welcome. How you doing? And welcome to the Hour of Politics.
Well, I want to say thank you, Mr. Sia, for inviting me. I'm always happy to join you on your program. Focus on Liberia is very informative. I'm very appreciative of the fact that this is one of the forums where the critical issues are discussed. I want to say thank you for inviting me. And I also want to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to every Liberian hearing the sound of my voice, wherever you are. We hope and pray that next year bring us success and prosperity. Once again, thank you for inviting. I'm happy to be here.
Ben, it's always a pleasure to have you here sharing your perspective, especially the topic for today. Development is a problem in our country. Our people are suffering. Living condition is so poor because we lack the necessary infrastructures in our country that will serve as the catalyst for the kind of development that will lead to improving the material conditions of our people so that we can live comfortably in our own home, in our own home and in our own country. So that is why we are inviting the audience to do us a little favor here by sharing the broadcast with somebody. You have been complaining that our country is backward. We don't have roads. Our airport is not near any serious airports. Our roads are congested, near existing, I mean, we are not a happy people when it comes to development. You come to healthcare sector, our institutions, that are healthcare facilities, they can't even serve us. Some of them have become death traps or death camps for our people. Our leaders have to fly to Ghana and India and other places to get care. And this country has been around for this long. The provision of electricity is a challenge. Just from Morovia, people are rationing, coring, power. I mean, if you don't have power, which is a major factor of production, how do you develop your country? But next to Africa's, Ben, Africa has stable and reliable electricity. Guinea, the same thing. They had their own troubles, so we can continue to keep making the excuses. The reason they have those things working for us is because of leadership. So now, how do we make it happen? We have not been able to succeed in any meaningful way with the things that we need to improve our life and our conditions in our country. Can we do it in the next 20 years? I think we should do it. So Ben, let's get started here. So let me hear your intro. Is it possible, Ben, that in 20 years, we can have a developmental paradigm shift in our country, in all the major sectors of development? Is it possible? Is it doable?
Well, I would say yes, it's possible, but Liberia, like many African countries, we have been plagued by what I call repetition, especially so in terms of leadership. Then I will add another factor to this. That is, whatsoever leadership exists, there is a high degree of insufficiency in terms of opposition or holding them accountable. I'll just give you one example before we go on. Right now, they say, well, there's one speaker here, another speaker here, but under all that chaos, they passed a budget that is 880 million, almost $1 billion. Now, the thing that came to mind is, was this budget sufficiently debated? Where is the opposition? Where are opinion leaders? Where are the religious leaders? I mean, I can't hear anything from Korea. I hear nothing from the ANC people. So there is there's a lack of engagement in terms of the opposition, especially so holding the government accountable. Like you just made a key point, the supply of electricity. I mean, in Liberia, we have LEC and we have a managing, director that is highly paid. Why is it that we cannot have stable electricity? And let me tell Liberians this: the hydro dam that we have, it has sufficient capacity. It has sufficient capacity to an extent where we are not supposed to experience the amount of blackout we are experiencing. But I will say this, and I will continue to say this during the course of this program: there's lack of accountability in terms of alternate leadership, the opposition, and there is a high level of incompetence when it comes to managing the state. When you combine the two, we have what I call inertia. Liberia can be transformed in two years' time. I will tell you this. I'm going to contest the next election. And during the course of this show, I will lay out statistics. Every number I gave here, they are factual. They are from UNDP, World Bank reports. I didn't manufacture everything. They will show the statistics, how dismal they are. And especially so, the existing administration have no plan or no clue in terms of how to correct all those wrongs that exist, especially so when it comes to managing Liberia. So I would say there are a lot of things, incompetence combined with insufficiency of opposition or accountability to the state. That's where we are. But Liberia can be transformed in 2 years, in just 2 years.
Ben, thank you. I know you said 2 years, and this is something someone will say that has not been done in the last 50 years or so. Let me welcome panelists joining in, Dr. Clarence Pearson. Welcome to the discussion. And let me also welcome the man, Jimmy Eastman, joining us from the nation's capital. Dr. Clarence Pearson is a serious-minded panelist here, focused on Liberia, and author, a new progressive commentator, and my good friend who doesn't hold back. He said to me, if you can't stand the heat in the kitchen, you got to get out. This country is a project, and it's not no one's project, but a collective project for us. Dr. Pearson, welcome.
Thank you, Anthony, for having me tonight. And I want to say hi to all the my fellow panelists on the show tonight. It's a pleasure.
All right, Jimmy.
Yeah, it's always good to be here to talk about our beloved country. I like the topic, that the fact of what can we do. Let's see if we can approach this in a constructive way. We have people like Ben Finn, who has ideas for the generations to come. So I'm sure, coupled with Mr. Pearson, Dr. Pearson here, we have a lot to offer.
Thank you, Jimmy. Gentlemen, let's get the buzz started. We have already started, by the way, and we are so happy that you have joined us. Jimmy, the first question we're asking is it doable, is it possible for us to be on a path, at least to development, to an appreciable level? Is it doable in the next 10, 20 years for someone to look at Liberia and say, at least there's something happening in this country? Is it possible, Jimmy?
Yes, it is definitely possible. But what has to happen, essentially, we need a plan. We need a plan. Of course, anytime you're doing things like this, you have to first make an assessment. You have to pinpoint the things that need to be worked on. And once you've identified those things, then you put a plan together that will constructively attack or address each of these issues. It has to be coordinated so that it will mutually benefit different areas simultaneously. Okay. You can't have silos developing. If you're going to develop, let's say education definitely is something we have, because we have to build human capacity. One of the tenets of a progressive nation is to have human capacity. And to build human capacity, you need infrastructure for schools. What else do you need for schools? You need electricity, you need other infrastructure in place. So you have to coordinate these plans, taking into consideration that you're getting what you need to create what you want, the end goal.
And Jimmy, just to follow up here quickly, I like when you said you need a plan. I like that. Now, is it that we have not had a plan, or is it that we have had plans in the past and no one or those plans have not been executed to the letter? If we have any plans in the past, what stopped the possibility of us developing these sectors?
Very good. We have, for instance, the PADP. You know, if I could go back as far as Ellen, Ellen will tell you Ebola is the one that disrupted her plan. She did have a few things laid out, and she embarked on it. And everybody says in the first 6 years, she was making gains. But Ebola it decimated all the expats left the country. Many of the investors that were coming in, they left. So it was like you're starting all over again. It was devastating. Okay, so I'll give her that. Then we had the PAPD plan.
But Jimmy, hold on. You know, the excuse of Ebola, I know, is a fact that happened. But in Rwanda, they had civil war just as we had civil war, right? So if she had things in place so much so tight, Ebola lasted for less than 2 years, and we crossed over that catastrophe. Did that take away the roles we needed? Did that stop the provision of pipe-borne water in Monrovia? I mean, did Ebola stop any of those things that were in place?
You know, like I said, there were people in Liberia at the time carrying out infrastructure projects, and all of them left. All of them left. Ebola was very
none of them, has come by. We still have a government, right?
Okay, we have a government. This is what I'm saying. I just trying to put right where right belongs.
All right, but let me allow you to conclude your introductory there. And the question I want to remind you is it doable in 20 years to transform our country?
No. Okay, very good. Mm-hmm. You have to say what you want to do in 20 years. You cannot send nobody to the moon in 20 years. It's not going to happen in Liberia. You have to identify the level you think you can attain in 20 years. So you can say, will we have food sufficiency in 20 years? I would say that would be hard. That's a start. That's a stretch. Will we have 50% of our students back in school? That we can achieve. And you have to identify the level at which you're aiming. And then you can say, is it? So just saying, can we develop in 20 years? You have to measure it. Anything that can't be measured can't be counted. So
I agree with you, Jimmy. But to be honest, two things can be true. I know we had Ebola and we had other things that happen in our country. But to be using those things as excuses at this point, to me, those things are unacceptable. Let me bring you in, Dr. Pearson. Is it doable, my friend, in 20 years? For Liberia to move to an appreciable level of development? Is it possible? How?
Anthony, it's good to have me on tonight, and I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. And I just want to say welcome to Mr. Dukley. Anthony, I would say it's doable. There are a lot of developmental models out there that we can look at. I would just one of my books that's coming up. I was just looking at India just the other day. India had a 30-year space of time between 1991 to 2003 that I saw tremendous change in their country that took them from being one of the poorest in the world to one of the world's most leading economy as we speak. For example, in 1991, India GDP was at 270 GDP was 270 billion in 1991. Today it is 3.7 trillion. All right, 3.7 trillion. So there are models out there. I think, in my opinion, what I would say is that what I think we lack is like Jimmy put it right. We lack plan, and I'm not talking about your PDP and your Pro plans. Those plans are influenced by IMF and World Bank, and those plans are subjective to what the true developmental vision of a country we want. In fact, we've studied and learned that your plans that are your plans that are driven by IMF and World Bank, only arguments there that they only foster more poverty and more unemployment because they restrict you from doing certain things that tie you down from doing what you ought to do. And I think the next thing that we have to do, besides having a plan that is owned by us and driven by us, we need a strong political will, and we need to depoliticize our country so that everything we do is not just about politics; it's about national interest and moving the country forward. And last but not the least, we need to respect the rule of law. In the absence of the rule of law, having lived in Liberia for the past 30, 40 plus years, and I've seen the chaos that the breakdown in the rule of law can cause, we're not going anywhere if we don't respect the rule of law. So those are the three things that I see. A plan that's developed by us and driven by us. I mean, political will and respect for the rule of law. Minus those things, we are not heading anywhere, Mr. C.
Thank you. And we'll get to the major sectors that we need to really tackle in a serious manner with leadership and concrete plans to move the needle. Mr. Dukley, first question that will be your intro. My friend, 20 years from now, is it doable for us to transform our country to an appreciable level of serious development that can be visible?
I think, thank you very much for the opportunity, and I want to say hi to my fellow panelists. Answering that question, it's a very loaded question, but I can tell you, I can give you the short answer, and then I will elaborate on a longer answer later on in the program. I think the short answer is yes, it is doable. It can be done, and it has been done in other places that share similar characteristics as ours, and places where they have experienced similar devastation as we have, and they have come out of it actually in a way that is it surprised many activists who are concerned with developments. And when I this afternoon when I read Jimmy's plan there, what caught my attention was the first bullet there, which is education. You know, Anthony, one of the things that haven't been spoken of enough in our political dialogue in Liberia is education, and by education I mean education that reflects our new realities, education that serve our new reality much more so than we have done in the last 50 years. And I will actually add one more aspect of it, which is to incentivize the students to get them into school. Because you see, this notion of development, as we know it in Liberia, or as we speak about it in Liberia, is very not balanced. In that, you know, the focus is so much on regular academics, and other aspect of learning is forgotten, or it's not enough attention is not paid to it. So with all what we have to say and all what we have to suggest, behind all of that, you need the will and the right leadership to implement them. I mean, we can put all the best plans on paper. If there's no leadership that will come up with a vision of what is on paper, it's meaningless. I'll take you to East Africa. Look at Uganda. In 1986, where Uganda was and where Uganda is today, you compare them. That's just one example. Go to Rwanda, where Rwanda was 1984 and where they are 2024. And I'm saying this to look at all the spheres, education, agriculture, you name it, and look at where they have come. Now, a similar comparison, but not quite. But Ghana, look at what Ghana has done. Really, when you look at the history of education in Ghana, one of the things that Ghanaians did and one of the things that they pay attention to was to incentivize learning. Now, how did they incentivize learning? First, I think K1 to as a secondary was free, and not only that, there were programs built into that system where you felt the need of going to school even if you didn't want to go to school. All right, and so when we talk about Liberia developing 20 years, I think for our situation, 20 years is that.
And you taught that.
So 20 years to me is even too long to get the basics in place and get started, and you can see tangible outcomes within the period of a decade.
Thank you.
So yes, it's doable with the right leadership and with the right with the people who are having the political will to do what they say they want to do.
All right, Ben, let's come to you. Let's go into this thing here, right? To develop Liberia in the next 20 years, there are a lot of things that we need to take into consideration. One will argue the foundation should be education. And Jimmy couldn't have put it right. Let us build capacity of our citizens by giving them skills, all right, to be able to produce, to be able, to do things that will move the needle in our country in terms of development, all right? If we have the human capacity of our country at an appreciable level, then the rest can fall in place. It's almost like it's going to be that catalyst, for development. Because if we want to build homes, if we want to build roads, we can't go to Ghana, we can't go to other countries and bring knowledge from that because they will take the money back. So let's come to education. How can we invest in education as a country? How can we use our educational system to develop our country? What plan do you have?
Yeah, first thing I want to say, let me react to some of the things that was said earlier.
Okay.
Mr. Eastman said something that you know, that I don't want, I want to respectfully disagree. Policy, when you are planning it, when you are designing it, right? There's something called risk assessment. So to give Ellen the excuse, you say, well, Ellen was doing something and Ebola came up, you know, uh, it shows a lack of knowledge, especially too in terms of the planning process. When you are planning anything, even I'll just give one word, I mean, example, the cars that we have, the cars we drive, every car there is spare tire there. Simply if your tire bursts. What I'm trying to say, when you're planning policy, you plan for what they call unforeseen reality. So to give somebody excuse where they were doing something and Ebola came, I will respectfully disagree with that. And the last thing I heard, you know, the other guest said was leadership. Well, leadership, maybe I didn't hear him define it, because you see, the leadership we are talking about is in every sector, government as well as opposition. I will tell you this, all of us on this phone, we have superintendency in Liberia, managing director in Liberia. When was the last time we hear that these people, their performances were reviewed? When was the last time we heard that? Because when we give people jobs, they have what they call terms of references, and we have what we set expectations. We give them goals. In Liberia, I mean, superintendent would be there for 5, 6 years. He does nothing. He's still on the job. He's still getting paid because there is no leadership on both sides in terms of his boss as well as the opposition. The last thing I want to say here, we passed a national budget like a few days ago, 880 million, almost $1 billion. I don't know if any of you here witnessed any debate on that budget. So it's a combination of factors. It's a failure from all angles. And we cannot just say education. Okay, what are we talking about? Who is holding the Unity Party feet now? Say, well, we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to do this. The ANC is saying nothing, CDC is saying nothing, UP don't even know where to go. So it's like a combination, it's like a total failure. It's a systemic rot. So like nothing will change unless some kind of leadership challenge what is existing.
We get all that. We know when it comes to leadership, I am disappointed that we have not seen any serious transformative leadership in our country on any level or at any level. We have not seen that. So I'm not this show. I'm not here to complain now. I'm here to talk about the ideas, the how. All right, the implementation of the plans. Let's talk the education. I want to hear you understand. Yes. How do we move the needle of development through education? How can we do it?
When it comes to education, the first thing in every country is what they call standardization. That means if you go to school in Bon County, you learn the same thing as somebody who go to school in Nima County. It's almost like the government has to design a curriculum that is nationalized. Then the next thing you go is funding. Funding is key to everything. Next thing you go, you have to set a criteria for what you consider a school. There should be some basic requirement for anything that we call a school. You have to meet this metric, this metric, this metric before we can certify you as a school. Your teachers should be certified. There should be a centralized agency that's certifying teachers that are in the classroom. Then the next thing is we have a 5-year game plan for our educational plan in terms of, because every plan that we make, we have to look at it every year and analyze and assess what we got right, what we got wrong, so we can make adjustments. But once you don't have those key things in place, no plan that you make will work. Because the last thing I want to say here, look at the people who teach. Let me just say this thing. 42% of the school-age kids in Liberia, they are not in school. Only, 12% of the young folks who should go to school in Liberia, attend tertiary school. Let me give you the last statistics here. Teachers. Almost 60% of the teachers in Liberia, they are not qualified to be in the classroom. So if we can get the basics in place, we can't get the basic in place, nothing will work. Thank you.
All right. I like that. Dr. Pearson, I don't know what I'm tempted to say. You are a teacher, but let's talk education as a foundation for the development that we so desire. And help me with how can we capitalize on vocational education right now? Something that will maybe in 2 to 3 years give us some level of capacity, all right, in order to do the technical aspect of development, all right, carpentry, masonries, and all these kind of things. How can we do it now? At the same time, maintaining, what I want to call the traditional education, programs at high school and this. How can we do it so that 20 years from now, somebody can come to Liberia and say, wow, they get their ass right this time?
Thank you, Mr. CA. For that question, I think there are two things I can say primarily. I think the other panelists can contribute other component to the conversation. But I strongly disagree that when it comes to education in Liberia, that we should be concerned currently about qualified teachers and stuff like that. I think I've heard far too often people say Liberia has a broken education system and what have you. And then and they just blame it on there, and other things are not taken into consideration. I think what I would say about education in Liberia is that, first of all, how can we employ the kids that we are graduating to begin with? Every year we graduate over give and take 500-600 university students or more. Every year we graduate thousands of high schoolers. At the end of the day, these young people graduate with no opportunities whatsoever to exercise the skills that they've learned or the knowledge that they have acquired. If anyone would disagree with me on this, I think I would just like to point out, first of all, listen, knowledge learned and not exercised is a waste. It's a loss. A knowledge that does not have a practical basis for exercise also, it gains nothing. A majority of us who are doing well elsewhere out of the country are doing well in the country went through the very school systems that we're talking about here. Some would argue that the education now is worse than before the war. Well, I would give some credence to that, but that's what I would say, Anthony. I'm not saying we don't need teachers. I'm not saying we don't need a better educational system, but what I'm saying is that we need opportunities. We need to ensure that our country has opportunities so that the kids that are going to school can have practical experience on the things they are learning. So take, for instance, when will we start thinking about making agriculture a more practical experience for the kids in agricultural college at LU? When will we start making the engineering department in LU more practical by having hands-on experiences for the kids who are doing engineering in LU? When do we make our programs, those who are doing probably civil engineering, other forms of engineering, like maybe building roads, who want to build roads or things, when do we start making them more practical? And, I think that way we need to start thinking about, rather than thinking about somebody teaching kids who are teaching 12th grade and they are not qualified. I went through the same school system, and I can assure you, I'm not saying that we have the best of teachers. No, I'm not saying we don't need qualified teachers. No, but I'm saying is that we have a skeleton without a proper sinews and flesh and meat and skin on the bone, and so we're giving the kids bare minimum. And so what I would say to Liberia is that, look, let us brush aside that petty and way by saying, like, oh, our education system is a mess, we don't have qualified teachers. No, let us make our education more practical.
Let me understand your point here. Are you suggesting that if we were having jobs for the accountants, the teachers, and the nurses, and every profession that we are conferring on everybody in the country, out of a sudden, the educational system would become competitive and better because these people now have jobs or they have opportunity to practice what they learn?
Okay, Mr. C, a good question. I know I'm threading a very controversial line, and people will argue with me out there. But I will say this: I will try to be as practical as possible. Maybe my education is what's driving me in this direction. A little boy from Guinea who did not enter the classroom, going to the mechanic shop in Liberia, sit under the car with the Mandingo man, and leave from there an expert in mechanical engineering. A little boy come from Guinea and come in Liberia. He didn't go to high school. He didn't go to no school at all. He went in the garage. He sat with an electrical engineer, a vehicle motor electrician, and become an expert in that area. And let me give you this. Let me give you this story. We got all the garages in Liberia going to other vocational schools in Liberia, but we leave them and go to the very Mandingo beginning to fix our car when we got electrical problem. We go there to do our engineering problem. We go there to do our vehicular problems to have them fixed. What we cannot fix in our garages. So I'm not saying. So you want to learn how to drive. Somebody put in the classroom and show you all the gear and show you all the information on the blackboard. It doesn't make no sense until you get in a vehicle and drive it around the city. And then you leave from there feeling confident in what you've learned. So what I'm saying is that Liberia, we need to shift. We need to shift to a more practical. Like I gave you India, for example. When India wanted to learn how to to go to the moon, they liaised with a country who know how to go to the moon, and they put their people under them in what they call, so they hire the scientists and bring them to India and sit with them, and then they practically build what they wanted to see. When they wanted to build, right now India has a submarine a contract, I think with Russia or Germany, where they are partnering with a whole submarine taken from that developed country, carried to India. They have their own loom sitting in India, and their engineers are learning on those machines, and they are trained people working alongside them. So what I'm saying, look, I grew with Ben. We need qualified teachers. We need a viable education system in terms of libraries and learning environment. We need all of those things, but they are not going to work if politicians continue to misapply our resources and don't give our kids practical learning. That's what I'm saying. Learning has to be practical, and that requires us giving them opportunities to do so.
I like your idea there, and I want you to conclude it so that me and the audience will take the little cue from you. So now you want the educational system to be practical in every aspect of it, and that when we do that, in the next 20 years, we'll be where we need to be in terms of, because the essence of education is to build capacity in every aspect, right? So
Right.
Give me the picture. How do we, bring about that practical aspect of our education system?
So let me. Again, this is we don't have enough time on the show, so there's a
Please be as brief as possible. I want to get to the next step.
There's a complex concept that I'm trying to drive home in 1 second, right? But listen to this. Take for instance, LU have an engineering department, right? Mm-hmm. Imagine we want to build bridges across the country. I see lawmakers then arguing about building bridges and things. What if we have engineering students building those bridges with experts from other countries who have the expertise guiding them in the process? By the time those bridges are built, 5 or 6 of the bridges are built, our students are not just classroom oriented, but they work out of their expert in their fields. Let me leave the bridges. Let's go to roads construction in our country. Let's assume that we have engineering students that are learning to build roads. Instead of giving the contract to foreigners and they come and build a road over there like I saw during LU time, let's assume we have our engineering department from LU and they are the one building the roads alongside the experts who have come with the equipment that are available. Am I saying this is an easy ride? No, it's a complex planning. It's critical planning. They come with additional cost, right? But I think it is the best way to go. So that at the end of the day, I'm driving away from us sending.
This thing should go around. What guests can hijack the program?
We get poor scholarship to go abroad to learn. By the time they learn, they stay right abroad. They never come back home. If they come back home for political reasons, they are kicked out of the system.
Anthony, just to add to what Pearson saying, they got something called targeted learning. Instead of just having people doing science, this and that. No. What are you aiming? Do you want more mechanics? Do you want more engineers? Do you want more doctors? You target what you need in the country by the industry demand, and then you train more people for that industry. It is targeted because we don't have the time, we don't have the resources, so we have to make use of every minute that kid stays in the class. And definitely, trade will be the way, but you also need an industry to absorb That's
Right.
what he's saying. You need an industry to absorb that skill as
I mean,
well.
Anthony, I have to come in.
Yeah, come in,
disagree
Ben.
with this. I
Come in.
disagree with this because these are the kind of language, these are the kind of discussion that got us where we are today. This guy is talking about somebody coming from LU. The education system is broken. He's telling us a blind should lead the blind. I mean, this is impossible. The quality of the teacher matters. I'm looking at World Bank report. Say less
Ben,
than 50%
he's
of
looking
the
at practicality. Forget that World Bank
No,
report. I don't have
Anthony,
time for World Bank
Anthony, that's
report.
why
World
our
Bank
country is
report.
like
Where
that.
you would get your teacher
Useless.
from?
Anthony,
Man,
listen,
Where you would get a teacher
World
from?
Bank
Anthony, I will
report.
tell you this.
Anything from
That's why
IMF,
our
do not
country is
listen to
like
it.
that.
It's a waste of time. I'm telling you.
No, it's not a waste of
IMF
time.
have not
Anthony,
gotten any numbers right in
Anthony,
Liberia. All
Anthony, I
their
can tell you
projections
this.
are
I
always
can tell you
off.
this. Whatever job that you do right now, you were properly trained to do that job. You were certified.
Then let me
You
tell
were
you,
certified.
you're talking
That's what
about
I'm telling
World
you.
Bank
But
people
when it
that
comes to
stay in
Liberia,
Washington
that's the
or
same
that
standard
stay
that we
in two
apply.
offices in Monrovia and don't go in the field. Never ever take those people report serious. Don't
No,
never do that.
Anthony, what I'm telling you is when it comes to a job, especially so when people teaching other people, I want them certified properly. That is the only that's the only guarantee we
Agree
have.
with what you said. What he's saying is let make our educational system more practical. That's all he said. He didn't disagree with you. So the two things he's saying, I agree with Ben. Let have the certification. Let have the curriculum standardized. Let have the teachers trained. Let have the best institutions. Let create all the facility. Let create the best learning environment. But he's adding that we should place emphasis on practicality of the education. Someone walks out of the University of Liberia with a degree in business. The person does not have money to start. The person is not even going to maybe a store to be an accountant. What use is that? Why would motivate another person to say, well, I'm going to LU? If the one who just walked out of EDU does not even have a job or does not have an opportunity to put that tax. That is his argument. I think he's in agreement with you 100%.
Yes, Ben.
No,
I
no,
support
no.
Ben. I
I'm not in agreement with him.
support you.
I'm not.
Ben,
I'm
I
not in
support
agreement with
you.
him.
Ben, I support you 100% that you need
No, I
qualified
think you are
teachers.
silent in the argument because what you are talking about, you are talking about what they call PPP, public-private partnership. And you talk about kids from school, students from school. Yes, they need what they call apprenticeship. But to get those people with job, we need a government policy. We need a program that is funded that will give those people jobs. We can just, I will tell you this: nobody coming from LU right now can build any bridge for me. Nobody from LU can build any bridge.
So that is why he's saying when that person is working out of LU, whether it's a engineering department, if there's a construction company in Liberia, you understand? Reach a deal with that construction company to hire that student so they can put to practice what they've learned. Let them learn from the hands-on people so they can get a practical experience. Then thereon, they can be able to take charge. That's how we take charge of our country. Let me come to Mr. Ducle here. I think you guys are in agreement. Mr. Ducle, we still talking about education here. How can we do it so that we can move the needle in the next 20 years to an appreciable level, my friend?
I think I just wanted to comment on something Jimmy said earlier, which is the targeted learning. I'm saying I spent 9 years of my career working as a university, and during those 8-9 years in Winnipeg here, I learned a lot. And it taught me something about targeted learning, because targeted learning simply means you look at the deficit, where the deficit exists, and you try to fill it. It's as simple as that. Now, when you look at the University of Liberia today, as we speak, the vast majority of students there want to be accountants. Or the business school is probably the largest school at the University of Liberia. Now, that has to do with people's mindset. There's very little emphasis on sciences. There's very little emphasis on practical learning, as Dr. Pearson is telling us. So with targeted learning, you sort of research and see where can we develop more to catch up with the needs of our country. And sometimes I say this thing and as my area of interest, which is in North Africa, and because that's where my formative years were. I attended school during my formative years, so I'm familiar with the school system in North Africa and the way the school system worked there. Now, what I see in North Africa is that almost simultaneously these things go hand in hand. The need of the country to develop certain sectors of the country, at the same time to build the capacity of the citizens, as you said earlier in your intro, Anthony. So these things you can do these things together. You can do both together with the practical, with the needed resources. I'll give you an example. Say in Egypt, if you graduate from high school and your grades are at certain grades, you have no choice. You have no option. You have to go to technical school. Whether you are somebody interested in technical school or not, you have to go to technical school because you did not meet the grades that will send you to schools other than technical school. And that could be mechanic, that could be whatever you want to name it. Now, that has to do with what we call the targeted learning, as Jimmy was talking about. So we look at our community, our society, our country, as Dr. Pearson was rightly saying that those guys come from Guinea. That's true, but that doesn't serve Liberia well, because those individuals that you see there, if you bring in a machine that can diagnose what's wrong with the vehicle, he or she will not be able to operate that machine. Operating that machine requires the knowledge to operate that machine. So targeted learning is one effective way to go, because then you know where the needs are and then you focus the resources there. At the same time, you are building the capacity of the students who are learning. Now, you cannot do any of this without trained teachers. So I would like to respectfully disagree with Dr. Pearson that our teachers, the basis of the development has to come from the teachers. Yes, you see, what you and I have become today is actually not a reflection of the school system in Liberia, but rather is a reflection of us, me and you, and everybody on this panel, what we have done. Because we were fortunate to have been in a place that actually nurtured our skills. We're fortunate to be in a place that gave us the resources we need to nurture those skills. Had you not come to the United States, Dr. Pearson, would you be where you are today? I bet no. You wouldn't have been.
Just for the benefit of the audience, I will have to answer that question.
No. I know you answer
for the audience because they will want to know.
The point I'm making here, Dr. Pearson. No, the point I'm making here is there is a need to have qualified teachers as the beginning of improving our education.
If I not come on this side,
I will give you a minute to respond.
Yeah, Dr. Pearson, you are coming. So you look at qualified teachers on the one hand, and at the same time, targeted learning. Where the needs are, you diagnose them, you find them, and then you focus resources there to improve them. And within a very short period of time. And that's why I was talking to you guys when I mentioned Uganda. Uganda had gone through several decades of war, civil war. Everything was decimated in Uganda. 30 years later, look at Uganda today in terms of the educational system. How did they do it? So yes, Anthony, it can be done, except that we need to have the right mechanism in place. Like I said to you earlier, if you have to have the right teachers, and then you have the targeted learning, and those two things can go hand in hand, and we can do both. Now, on the aspect of having to practicalize the learning, I mean, that's all part of it, Dr. Pearson. But the way you do it, you have to first of all have the industry that needs this practice developed. I mean, NVTC, are they equipped? Topman University in the southeast there, is that university actually equipped to graduate the kind of engineers we need? Do they have the kind of laboratory to do their research? I mean, there are a lot of things that need to come in place.
Thank you.
So when you, with the right kind of leadership, with the right kind of a mindset, you bring people who are thinking beyond their term in office, for the development of our country, we can do it, Anthony.
Thank you.
You just need the right people in the right places.
Dr. Pearson, you wanted to respond to that rhetorical question for the benefit of our audience.
Yeah, just for the benefit of the audience. So Mr. Ducle, I got my elementary high school in Liberia. I got my junior high school in Liberia. I got my senior high school in Liberia. I got my first degree in Liberia. I got my master's in Liberia. And I was working for the United Nations before I left Liberia to come and stay in the United States. So I'm saying this to mean that all my education, earlier education was in Liberia. And I'm a proud graduate of the University of Liberia. And before I even left Liberia to come and do my PhD, I was the one who led my country to develop its HIV and AIDS strategic plan, 5 years plan. I'm only saying that because that was a complex plan in a transition period at the United Nations at the time. So I'm saying in short that, listen, I know we don't give a lot of respect to our education system, but if we just treat it right, all right, we have one of the best representation of our education system across the world.
What do you mean by that?
Huh?
What do you mean by that?
I mean, some of the brightest of the Liberians are Liberian trained and educated. That's what I'm trying to say. And it was not because of any fundamental foreign training I received in the earlier stage of the education. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, the ones I'm trying to say. The Gafuan, the American, and the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and the rest of them, the first was schooled in Liberia, including myself.
Thank you. Jermaine, let's move to what I want to call economic development, because we talk about the foundation of everything else, which is education. We must have the capacity. And then when we have the human capacity as individuals and the skills, we need to build an economy, all right, where the skills can be practiced and the economic system that will be like the fuel of the economy. Of the citizenry of our country, to put it right? Because I'm gonna have a job, to get food to eat and to build shelter for me and my family, and that earning will provide me money to even pay for healthcare for my family. So the economy is the major next thing that we need in our country. That would be good, because the economy now will give us money to build the roads. Now that we have the skills, the capacity to do these things, we need the economy to be there strong enough to support the country. So let's talk about economic development. So on economic development,
very good.
Yeah. I was just trying to give it to you. One of a few sectors that we can place emphasis on giving our system. Everybody agree agriculture, but it's been like a list of it. Everybody just mentioned that word and they turn their back. Then another one is infrastructure. Jermaine, you can better explain this. Infrastructure. We're not only talking about road, but we're talking about telecommunication. We're talking about internet in the modern age. And we're talking about microfinancing and loan. We need, a capital, cash flow in the country. So how do we do things now so that we can move the needle in the next 20 years?
Jermaine? One thing we have failed to do, we're following an old model that's been in existence in Liberia from 1847. It is this centralized model. Everything has to come from Monrovia. All the plans come from Monrovia without doing the requisite local studies to determine what the local economies need throughout. So we, in order to encourage local enterprise, small businesses and industries, you have to have those communities determine what they need. It shouldn't come from Monrovia. It should come from the local, what the local people think they can do, what they can produce. The other day, people building things for these communities. Is that what's priority for them? We have to give local communities more say, more ability to determine what is best for them to develop, instead of taking it from top down. We've been doing this thing. I could understand why they started that way, but this is Liberia 2.0. This is the Second Republic. Why are we still having this centralized way of governing our country? It has caused several areas with a lot of potential not to be able to develop, because we're not giving them the chance to determine, for self-determination, to see what is good for them. Monrovia is telling them what is good, and that is not the way to do it. We need to empower those communities by determining what they want, and help them build infrastructure and address some of the regional disparities between, because as we know, Nimba is very industrial as compared to other counties. So why are some counties not as industrial? We need to address
national leadership. Let me hold you there, Jimmy. National leadership, a national leadership that is patriotic enough to set in motion these major factors of production. All right. I don't think it's the one you want to say, okay, let's involve everybody in every community making a decision. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about agriculture. Now, we have to take ownership of agriculture in so many ways. Individually, collectively, we can do so. But how can a country make a decision, come up with a plan in which agriculture is not only feeding us, but is creating the opportunity to generate significant revenue so that it can spur economic activities in the country? Okay. And then we're also talking about our infrastructure. There has to be a national plan that you talked about earlier, and money to fund it, and the political will to implement the plan. That's what I'm talking about. How do we do it?
I'm drilling down. You see, the agriculture plan that's good for Lofa may not be good for Babalu. It may not be good for Maryland. You have to look at the local capacity of that place and come up with an agricultural plan suitable for the area. It shouldn't just be a cookie cutter, one plan fits all. There are people that have different motivation. Once upon a time, Lofa was the breadbasket for Liberia.
Yes.
That's how it was named. But do you know that Nima produced almost as much? But so what do they need specifically? Go to the town, and what can we do there specifically? We can't just say agriculture, because there may be other hidden things that is impeding their development, okay? And maybe instead of they producing agriculture, why don't we let them be
Jimmy, how do we handle agriculture now so that in the next 20 years, we can either be able to produce 90% of what we need and what we eat and what we use? How can we do it?
Okay. It takes longer than that in agriculture. It takes a while before you can.
To grow rice would not take 2 years. So what is taking us too long as a country to find a way to grow sufficient rice in our country? So I don't know what you're talking about.
There's a lot of studies about swamp rice and our ability.
And up to now, we have not done the study for swamp rice. There's not a study, there's not a report anywhere that we can look at and say, okay, this is a report and this is what the report is telling us to do. Let's do it now. Do we have to go and study it again?
What I believe we have, experts would tell you, our climate is not ideal for producing rice. They will tell you that. But what we can do, we can defy the odds and put enough.
So fertilizer can help us. If the soil is not good enough, if we apply fertilizer, it will not help us.
There are several things we can do, but what I'm just trying to say is, agriculture is very, very challenging. When I was back in LU,
can we reach out to a rice producing company, let's say in India, they're producing rice here in
good example.
Can we go to, hold on, Jimmy, can we go to Taiwan, for example, that is producing rice sufficiently for our leaders to engage and look? We want to talk to you about rice production in Liberia. Is there a business, a company in those countries that producing rice there sufficiently that we can bring to Liberia, give them land so that they can recruit our locals to go into mass production? I mean, this being 177 years plus, have we not been able to figure this thing out yet, Jimmy? I don't want this lecture. I want action now.
Okay, at what level? You know, you mentioned India. What India did to transform their whole agriculture production is land reforms. Individual farmers and planting rice is not going to do it. First of all,
that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about mass production by companies that have the capacity to produce tons of rice. Our leaders want to tell me they can't find a way.
You have to have land reforms. You have to cooperate. You don't want a company just to produce what. First of all, you got to give them the land to produce it.
So let us give them the land.
So giving them the
Indians
land
are doing it. The Chinese are doing it. The Taiwanese are doing it. How is it that the way they've done it, is it a secret? Can we not get that information?
No, then they do. They use land reforms. In China, the people don't own the land. The government owns the land. In India, they did what they call land reforms, where people jointly farm. They farm together.
All right.
India is one of the best examples of agriculture, how they turned the whole thing around. India they were starving before, and now they are exporting rice.
That's what I'm talking about. We are starving our country. I just from Liberia. Children are not getting 3 square meals a day. If we were producing sufficiently in our country, maybe that will cut that off. Dr. Pearson, we are talking agriculture here. I'm not talking about subsistence farming that your grandma and my grandmother and grandfather did. I know what I'm talking about here, where our national leaders negotiate, talk to businesses or companies that are involved in massive production to come to Liberia. We have lands. If it means that we talk to our locals to have the people sign a contract so that the people can benefit, let us do it. Let's produce food. We need to eat for the children to even be in school. How can we do it? How come it has not been done all these years?
That's a good question. You know, I'm a little I'm smiling, I'm laughing because I used to go to bone mines every vacation, and I can say for a fact when we're on the farm, we have fruits lying all on the ground rotting, and we did nothing with it apart from the one we got to just suck for a second. And we ate guava and what have you, and the rest of them was all lying on the ground. Nothing was done with them. I've gone in Bikana and other places, and even down to Bapolu and other places to visit family and friends at the time. And they were planting cassava, and the cassava we planted, the harvest will come. They will be unable to harvest it because they can't transport it to town. And the entire harvest will get rotting, and they will plant it again the next season. You know, I said this to say that we have food in Liberia. What we lack again goes back to, again, I'm going to come up with another controversial idea, some controversial ideas that people will hate again, and they will complain about. But listen, first of all, we need we need an agriculture and development bank. Completely committed to national agriculture and development projects. Nothing else. Agriculture and development bank. If possible, let's reopen the one that closed during the Doe regime. And after we've done that and put some stolen money in it that we got spoiling all over the country there, buying $1.2 million cars and stuff like that, and $45,000 car every 2 years, we put those monies in that bank and let the farmers have access to that money, right? So instead of President Joseph Boakai going to buy $1.2 million vehicle, that would be a point of contact for capital investment for a factory or production plant across the country. Having said that, with the bank sitting there, as Anthony said, the next thing you want to do is I want to decide as a country, what do we really want to do? What are the crops that we want to be for exportation to bring revenue into our country, to bring RPD, they call it, into the country? Yeah, right? What are the crops? Now I know we got cocoa, I know we got coffee, I know we got rubber. We got those they call them cash crops. How can we empower those that are currently investing in those Liberians that are currently invested in those areas? How can we empower them through that banking system and strengthen what they're currently doing? The next thing when it comes to rice, this is what I would say about the rice issue, right? that should be a national policy issue that stems from the House of Legislature. That Liberia has maybe a 5 years plan to become rest sufficient. And that plan should not just be another paper document, but that plan should be supported significantly by a specific budget directed for that alone. And that budget for that plan should include farm to market road infrastructure. That should include storage. That should include a production center. And that should include compensation for existing local farmers who got lands, that the government will not just want to grab the land, give it to strangers, but will use those existing farmers to farm in the areas that they're farming in the rice production, and be willing to buy the rice from them, give them advanced seedings, give them equipment, give them access to funding, and not only that, but help them to get the produce from the farm to the storage, to production, and to distribution. And I close by saying this, Anthony. The reason why I say we should have a legislation for that is because if we're not careful, they will politicize it. Somebody will want to take credit for it. So when they see President Bouaga has achieved that and making him popular, or making Unity Party popular, when they come in, they want to destroy it and do something different so that they can get another form of political acceptance to the people. So it shouldn't be a party thing. It shouldn't be a political thing. It should be a national project. And I will close on that. And Jimmy is the brain in terms of dissecting. He will dissect what I just said.
All right. Mr. Dukley, you know what agriculture is key. If we can feed ourselves, then we are finished. And it's obvious that we have not been able to feed ourselves in a serious way as a nation. And so we are crying for small $500 million in compact grant. People are celebrating. Leaders in our country are celebrating. You know, can you imagine that?
Grant with strings.
I mean, I saw our former finance minister, Samuel Tweed, dancing with the hope that they were going to get $500 million when we can generate billions for ourselves, to take pride that this is what we've raised for our country. Our finance minister was dancing. I'm talking. I'm like, what is going on in his head? Another country raise money from their taxpayers, from their economy, and they are telling you that they may give you some, so you're sinking. When you have a nation that you can use, you control the entire land, you know, to find way to raise money. No, the Indians are raising trillions.
True.
Chinese are raising trillions. We can't even raise $1 billion. You can't sit down to plan to raise billions. You are dancing and hoping. Talk to me, agriculture. How can we feed ourselves? Maybe we are hungry, that's why we're not thinking right. So let's start with feeding ourselves. How can we do it?
You know, Anthony, this agriculture thing has been spoken about for years, for decades, and we have not really seen any tangible outcome over the years.
Maybe because we're just talking, we're not acting. So I want action. How do we act now?
It's almost like we keep going in circle. But you know, when you talk about agriculture, one nation came to my mind.
Okay.
Before I even delve into that, I just wanted to say something about what Jimmy said earlier. To regionalize agriculture, that's very important, because, like you said, you know, one crop might be viable in one county, it's not viable in another county, right? So diversification will come in there. Now, Liberia, and you said something that I thought is extremely important. Liberia did have a very good relationship with the Philippines and Malaysia, where Liberia used to send their agricultural people there for training, so that they can come back to Liberia and impact that knowledge on our people, you know, as a way of building our capacity. But you know, the way you are talking about agriculture and the way you expect it to impact on us, that requires lots of heavy lifting. And I'm just using the word heavy lifting, but I mean, I mean to say here, there are a lot of things that need to come into play before we can actualize that. Because it's not only about agriculture as agriculture, but there's also food security, where we are able to feed ourselves. So one of the things that one of the countries that I was thinking about, or I kind of looked at, was Bangladesh. Bangladesh today is almost a light years away from where they were 30 years ago, simply because of agriculture and the things that they did to improve the agriculture. And I think some of those things can be done in our country. So here's one of the things they did. Land availability was one of the first priority, to make sure the land is available. Now, to your point earlier, Anthony, we can bring in an expert from Malaysia, from China, from the Philippines, and show how we can mass produce our staple food. And we can have that for, I would say, give it 4, 5, 6. But we have to make the land available, right? Now, once the land is available, then you focus on agricultural productivity. How much do we produce? How much are we able to produce with what we've got? Right? And so once you got that in place, then the next thing will be you diversify what you're producing. So rice, cocoa, as they call it, the cash crop, agricultural produce, etc. You name it. Now, all of this can be sustained by sound government policies that can tie all of these things together, so that it can be sort of a nationalized. So it's not only after you have regionalized the production of what you want to do, then there is a national government policy that tie all of this together. Part of which would be to incentivize the people who are there. The cost of irrigation can be reduced if you do this. The cost of your crops can be. I mean, there are a lot of ways you can incentivize people to be there, to get involved into the agriculture sector. But again, all of this require sound leadership that want to see these things through. Otherwise, I think, like I said to you, Anthony, we do have a good relationship where through our bilateral or even multilateral relationship, we can bring in the expertise that can help us to embark on this agricultural journey, that we can be, we are able to feed ourselves. We are able to even feed the region. I mean, the land is fertile.
Yeah.
I mean, so what is our excuse? So it's about time we think differently from the way we've been thinking since 1847.
Thank you. And I am tired of being tired of the excuses. This is unbelievable, the excuses we give. And it is with us here, even in the United States, when someone asks us about our country, Liberians in their writing, read Liberian writing. Those who have intellectuals who are writing, they will always mention the civil crisis. Always mention that. And anytime I say that, I say, this is an excuse. It is a reality that happened in the past.
But Anthony, let me give you some of the factors first that causing the rise. First of all, there's limited technology. You need technology to sufficiently grow rice. The farming practices, the way we do it, is inefficient. Then what one of our readers always saying here, there is low public and private investment. Look how much the budget for agriculture. Look at your 2025 budget. How much you put in agriculture? That cannot even move the needle. Nothing. You have to put a lot of investment in this field in order for it to yield. Now, I want to tell you, we studied this thing. Even though you put a lot of investment in agriculture because we need it to feed ourselves, but when you look at its contribution to GDP, it's always very low. So unless we very efficiently produce agriculturally, that's the only way it will have greater effect on our GDP. It's a mixed bag, and it's complicated.
Thank you. Let me welcome Mr. Gabriel Carter, who is the host of our Business and Economic Forum here at Focus on Liberia. That is Focus on Liberia marketplace. Mr. Carter, I think you came in the right time. We're discussing something near to your dear to your heart. We're talking about the economy. We're talking about, you people call it cash flow. That's why
Yeah.
we're talking something that will, lead to production. But I was about to move to manufacturing. Do we have a policy as a country that will spur, manufacturing activities, something that will incentivize manufacturing in Liberia? Can we say, you know what, for our timber, nothing is leaving this country? If you are not a business or a company that want to use our timber to produce copper bowls, to produce things in Liberia, just forget it. Can we say,
Yeah.
look, if you are a business in Liberia, if you don't want to use the rubber you are tapping or you buying to produce rubber slippers, rubber bowls, and everything rubber, just forget it. You're not the business you want to deal with in this country, because this is how we create jobs.
Yes.
This is
Yeah.
how we generate more, because for each slipper or bowl, government have a tax on it.
Yeah.
But if the rubber is shipped out of the country, and now we're importing slippers and rubber bowls, now we are paying money. So talk to me, Gabriel. How do we handle our economy so much so that in the next 20 years, it will be an economy that creates economic activities and opportunity for everybody?
Yeah, thank you guys. I first I want to apologize for coming in late, but I will be very quick. If the closest we've ever gotten to industrialization was under Tarbert, in as much that I think he was, and we can debate this, he was probably the most innovative in terms of from an industrial standpoint president. We didn't like the way he went about it, but I think that was the closest we have come to being industrialized as a country, meaning every sector, looking at manufacturing in every sector. His policies, if they were to be implemented, we would have been in an industrial country on the continent, and probably far better off than any other country in our on the continent. Now, that never happened. Maybe he's politically, the way he went about it, he kind of, ruffles kind of feather, and he was ousted. Perfect. We went into war. After the war, we had the ability to reset. And the point, I think you alluded to some of that. Some of the points here is that the things that we want to do, we want to achieve, they are not far-fetched idea. They're not outliers to say these are moonshots idea that you, in order to get there, you have to, think really outside of the box. There is Ghana right next door. Perfect example. I think I mentioned it on one of our shows before. In Ghana, there's a policy. There's a line item in their budget. It's called one district, one factory, meaning literally what it means. For every district, there is a factory. They have a policy to develop a factory. So let's say if you, Anthony, or Dr. Pearson or Dr. Dukle have the ability to develop, let's say, like you said, rubber factory in Bon County, River G, or whatever it is, the government has the intentional ability to augment your ability, your cash flow, whatever cash you're bringing. If you're bringing 20 million, the government will say, you know what, we will guarantee another 20 million. So Anthony can build a rubber producing, let's say, making bowls, pots, and pan right in River G for that district, whatever district that is, or whatever county. So there's an intentional ability for the government to do that, right? Now, us as a country, I think Jimmy alluded to that. We don't have a policy like that. There is no policy that is intentional in terms of industrializing the country, right? And for us, I think that was one of the first things we should have done right after the war. During Ellington, right at 2003, when that war ended, the first president who took over, they should have looked ahead and said, how do we want to build this country? This is a restart. How do we restart this economy? And how do we industrialize using the economic advantages of each county? In this case, we don't have to use district. We can look at each county to capitalize on their economic activities. In terms of Bon County, you can produce rice. You can look at Lofa, all those bread basket, and place strategic factories that are, that kind of appeal to their strength, right? The second part, I think that actually short changes, and this is something that is I talk about all the time as well, is the ability to fund these ideas. So let's say the government doesn't have the capital ability. We've been having budget shortfall all the time. The government itself is struggling. What about the private sector, right? What about our banking sector? Government cannot do everything at all the time. Government is supposed to be regulators. They're supposed to regulate in terms of, hey, make sure you're not cheating, Mr. Eastman. Make sure you're not cheating, Dr. Pearson. But the private sector, now the limited ability of the private sector goes back to its inability to raise capital, right? In Liberia, we
So
can't
how
do
do how do
capital.
we make the private sector strong so that where government hands short, the private sector can be able to cover that gap?
This is what do you call it? It could be a whole segment for another show, but I will break it down give me maybe 2 minutes or so.
Mhm.
So the banking sector that we have is illiquid. When I mean illiquid, meaning there's not enough cash flow in the bank, like you mentioned earlier. There's not enough liquidity in these banks to support businesses. I don't care what anybody tell you. If anybody doubting this, whether the central bank governor or any bank CEO, they should come on a show here, and I will walk them through what I'm saying. So the reason why I say it is short change or there's no liquidity, because I've been tracking them since 2018, right? You and I here easily, let me just make it quick. You and I here, anybody here, can create money in the economy and forces the government's hand to print it, right? So let's say you are the most effective consultant in our country. All the big multinational companies that come in our country, they come to you to consult, to do business with the government. You have your central office right in Central Moravia. You are so good that you have clients from all over the world coming that want to do business with Liberia come to your office. As an innovative businessman that you are, you say, you know what? I am so big, I'm stressed thin. I want to have another office in the on Field Highway. Perfect. You have your office. Quickly, I'll be short. You pledge that as a collateral. They give you a $1 million loan to open another office on the highway. What you have just done by signing that loan, let's say they give you that 1 million for 10%. What you have just done, you have just created $1 million that wasn't available in our economy immediately just by signing that loan agreement. Now, let me tell you how. The 10% of the loan, the bank give you that money, they have borrowed that money from the central bank at 5, right? So the bank is making 5, they're giving it to you at 10. They have just created 1 million. They can technically, they're supposed to have that money on their balance sheet before they lend it to you, but they can take that one single loan agreement and go borrow from the central bank, right? That boosts the amount of money they have on their balance sheet now. Now, let me tell you how that helps the economy as a whole. You, as an office, your initial office that you had, maybe let's say you have 5 people. Because you now have 2 offices, you will want an additional 5 people, right? You have just created 5 other jobs in our economy. People that will be paying taxes, people that will be using transportation, household taken care of. And at the same time, the bank is making money off of you off of the 5% that they're making off of the interest rate. That level of liquidity that is needed and that level of innovation that I just talked about isn't within our banking sector. Neither is it coming down from the central bank, right? So we
But
are
then
strong.
let me come in there, Gabriel. We have instances where government will even make money available. Like at some point, I think it's the Ministry of Commerce. Government had made some money available
Right,
for macro loan for people who want to do business.
Yeah.
All
correct.
right, and some Liberian took the money, and you are aware of the records that people have not paid back. Even our
Yeah,
central bank, for example,
yeah,
some individuals who even work at a central bank, they took loan they have not paid back. So that is another thing. How do we solve that problem? Because it's part of the problem.
quickly. Perfect. Another perfect question is a segue to another thing that I wanted to say. So perfect. I know I talked about the liquidity problem. We don't have it. The central bank doesn't ensure that we have that. So here's the problem. How do we solve that? Here, I'm making this comparison because, as I said, this is not a moonshot idea. That any problem you want to solve in Liberia, there's already an example. Here, there's layers to regulations, meaning for every bank that is below 100 billion is regulated by the FDIC. Anything over goes to what we call the OCC, the Office of the Controller of the Currency. That either whether it is regulated by the FDIC or the OCC, they hand down regulations every quarter, especially at the OCC, telling banks specifically if you are going to underwrite this type of loan, this is what you do, this is how you do it, and this is what it must follow. Because of that, every quarter, every 3 months, changes happen within the bank policy, internal policy, because of what comes down from the Federal Reserve, from the OCC and the FDIC. Right. Now, the question that you ask is, how do we solve the non-performing loans, or these people doing
All
giving
the
money to
dishonesty
defaulters?
from
Right.
borrowers.
So technically, technically what's supposed to happen is another policy we call insider lending. Insider lending meaning if you, Anthony, works in a bank, Jimmy works in a bank, or Dr. Pearson works in a bank, I cannot give you loan different from the rate or underwriting guideline that every other customer gets. Right now, if you are at the SVP, VP, and above level, we cannot even lend to you internally. Meaning you cannot if you were working for that bank, you cannot borrow from it. These are simple. When I mean simple regulations that need to be followed, that already exist within the world and across Africa, that we need to follow, that we're not following.
Thank you.
Simple as that.
But sorry, is that as a matter of policy?
It's a policy. It's a regulation. This is regulated by the Fed.
Thank you.
It's regulated by the Fed. It's called insider lending. When you leave from here, you go look it up. Right.
Thank you, Gabriel. And gentlemen, we let us talk about the big thing we hear about all the time: foreign direct investment, foreign direct investment, foreign direct investment. Have we not had enough of that, and or some of that, maybe to be a little more conservative here? Have we not have some foreign direct investment, and how did we do with that? Is it that we were cheated, or those that came were not genuine enough? Did they run away because of Ebola again? Is that what it is? So let's talk foreign direct investment, and I want to start with you, Dr. Pearson. How do we attract investment? Because I tell you this much, we need zero foreign investment in our country as well. Even the great United States is striving today because of significant foreign direct investment in this country. The Chinese and many other nationals are coming to America and they are investing here. And so Uncle Sam is doing well. So we have to look into that. How do we do it?
Thank you, Anthony. I think our problem is not that we cannot attract foreign direct investment. The last time I checked, I think between 2023 and 2024 ending, we had attracted under 300 million. I think it's around $200+ million that was attracted. Majority of it coming through rubber, iron ore, gold, diamond, and stuff like that. When I last look, I know that we have a growing capacity with cocoa. All right, cocoa and coffee. Some of our guys are really doing well in those areas as well, but we've not been able to generate much. But I think this is my major concern. And this is what I want to just project on this question. I think we undervalue what we have, and because we undervalue what we have, we don't know what we really have when it comes to our mineral in our country. As a nation, we really don't know, and because we really don't know, we sell it for cheap majority of the time. And second, another thing is that, and I'm referring to like iron ore and other major mineral like gold and stuff within our mines. Another thing is that our governments have not been so sincere with us, and I know you don't want us to complain, but what I would say is that we need to strengthen our negotiation skills when it comes to how we negotiate for these concessions, so that we first of all are aware of as to what we have and what we are willing to trade off on. And last but not the least, I think we should stop taking gifts. And I'll give you an example. HPX is trying to get involved in our businesses in our country. HPX is trying to get involved in our country. And our government already taking a couple of dollars on HPX in our 2024 budget. And I think I'm hearing they also got a couple of cash that we're going to be drawing from in 2025 as well in the national budget from HPX as gifts. What that has done for us is that when we try to negotiate with HPX, as I'm learning from my friends on the ground, they are not even open to any major negotiations. They are making demands. Like certain things the government wants to do right now with HPS telling them, I mean, straight to the face, no, you cannot do that. This is what we want, and this is how we're going to get what we want. So I think our foreign direct investment will improve. And I'm speaking from the broader perspective, because time can I allow us, is we need to, first of all, establish the value of what we have, how much we have in our country, and we need to bargain with sincerity as to what we can get as a nation, not what individuals can get in the pocket for the moment. And if we can go past those hurdles, and I think we can make some progress. I heard people once say, and I close on that, oh, we need to have Liberians go outside there and train and come back with the knowledge. Listen, I don't buy that idea. Somebody going to get vexed with me. I don't buy that idea simple to go train and come back. They got experts in the fields that we giving all our minerals on. All you got to do is just hire them as consultants to come and do your bargaining for you. They in fact, they see where our government was able to find 1.8 million when the capital burned. They can find 1.8 million and give it to a geologist to come to the country and more than 2-3 millions or 4, 5, 6 millions to assess our mineral value across our country, across the entire country, and tell us what we want. Instead, I mean, politicians eat the best of it. I know, for change, and I think that's what hurting us. And lastly, Anthony, I would say our cash crop is making headways. And if you read World Bank reports, I know we don't want to look at those reports, but they do show, IMF do show that we are attracting some direct foreign investment from cash crops. Let us empower them, like we said when we're discussing agriculture. Let us empower them. Let us open the Agriculture and Development Bank, and let the farmers be adequately empowered. Let them have a stake in what they are doing. Let us incentivize them to do more. Thank you.
So, Mr. Duclo, I want you to talk to me about trade partnership. Establish trade partnership to boost the economy. How can we do that? Have we not had anything like trade partnership before in the past, but others are doing it?
Well, yes, others are doing it, but Anthony, I think this notion of direct foreign investment is extremely important to economic growth. Mm-hmm. And just to look at it in the context of Africa and the world, the United States is the largest beneficiary of direct foreign investment in the world because of the market, the size of the market, and what the infrastructure the American economy has to offer, et cetera, et cetera. But when you come down to Africa and you look at the direct foreign investment in Africa, Egypt come on top as the number one with $11.4 billion. That is a significant amount of dollar there. $11.4 billion. The last statistic that came up was that was the figure for 2022, 2 years ago. Now, for us in Liberia, I think we can benefit from direct foreign investment. Now, we have the sectors where these things can benefit the country. You have the mining sector, the agriculture sector, the fishery, the forestry, and all education, agribusiness, tourism, and financial services. Now, you see, some of these things can just be where Liberia can add value to what we have. Like we talk about rubber. Now, why is it that we don't have rubber processing plant in Liberia? Is it because we have not been able to attract the right investor to do this? Now, you talk about, so these things are all tied into government policies and what they do to attract these investors. Remember, Anthony, these investors also look at certain metrics. They risk their capital. You have to have security. You have to have law and order so that they want to make sure that their investment is protected. And what we see in our justice system, what we see in our law enforcement, does not give any investor any encouragement to want to put their money in Liberia. Because you don't want to risk putting your money in a place where suddenly something goes wrong and then they say, oh, you are out. No, we have the ability to create partnership through bilateral, connections or multilateral connections that we have. In partnership, in direct foreign investment. We see it all the time. Thailand is another example. Vietnam is another example. Most of these things are not Vietnamese, but it's through partnership. You go to Bangladesh. Today, most of the clothes you wear in Walmart comes from Bangladesh or Vietnam. How did that happen? Through partnership, through direct foreign investments. We can do it. But we need to create the environment conducive for direct foreign investments. We need it. We have what it takes. We have the mining sector. All the sectors that I just mentioned, they are still virgin, literally, where there's still room to invest, there's still room to partner. But it has to, we have to have the right kind of policies in place to attract these people, Anthony. Now, what good is our resources under the ground when we can't make use of it? Because the people who are supposed to be helping us to implement those policies care only about their pockets. Before you can land a deal in the mining sector, you have spoken to 5, 6, 7 people, and each of them are asking for exorbitant amount of money, something that is going to benefit Liberia. But who wants to do business that way? And so we don't have the right kind of policy that is going to attract these people to bring their money into our country. Why is Egypt any different from Liberia? Egypt has the resources to accommodate these people, and probably the investment policies are encouraging the people. Tax incentives, you name it. So we need to come together. I remember when Joseph Boakai was coming to power, one of the things that he spoke about was tourism, to develop tourism. What have we done? What has happened in developing the tourism sector? What has happened? It's been a year now. What has happened? I was just speaking to somebody yesterday, and they told me, oh, do go at the Badawi waterfall. That's where we spend the Sunday. That's one area that you can go to Maryland, Sino. These are all things that can generate money for the country. What are we doing? But tourism is not big on their mind. There's also ecotourism. We can develop all these sectors, or if we can't afford to develop them, let's create partnership with people who have the expertise in this sector to help us to grow our economy, to create jobs, because through these people can work. There is just, you wonder whether those people who are in charge of our country, are they actually thinking outside the box? Because some of these things that we're discussing here, they are not new ideas. And we are not the first people who are talking about these ideas. So what is happening? Why is it that we are not seeing any? So like I said, tourism is one area we can really, really make money from if we pay attention to it. And we market it the proper way. You'd be surprised how many people will come to Liberia every 12 months just to see our. If you look, it just reminds me of, you guys might be familiar with this. Go to Niagara Falls and look at Niagara Falls. On both sides of the border, the New York side and the Ontario side, it's not any different from Batawi. It's not any different. And you look at the amount of people, even Canadian, local Canadian, flock to see Niagara Falls. They spend money when they go there. They pay money to go there. Why is that different from Batawi Falls? What are we waiting for? What is holding us back? You know?
You're not talking about size, right? You're talking about capacity to generate resources, right?
That's right. Not the size. No, I'm not talking about the size. But I mean the ability to be able to generate, income from it, to create jobs for people. You know?
That is true. That is true. To put structure around it, to put a system in place.
That's right.
With that, so that you can use it to generate money. I mean, I've went to Niagara Falls. I saw the little restaurant right there. I went there.
That's
I bought my little hot chocolate and a holly in my hand, and I went down. Then when I came back, I got hungry. I went to look for a restaurant, and I ate. Right. I put money in the people economy.
That's right.
You understand? They use that natural place, build it, and now they have boats on there for you to go for a boat ride.
That's right.
The water coming down, they give you rain jacket, so that you can't get wet. I mean, they just put a little things around it. You don't have to go on the moon to pick it up.
No.
And we are not doing these things, and we have the most beautiful places in our country. If you went to my Grand Cru, I don't want to get you started. Our lakes alone, people want to see it. But look at our Ministry of Information. All they're doing is justifying beautiful nonsense that is coming from the mouths of politicians. These people should be projecting an image of the country, telling us the resources we have, telling us about, of the nature that we have in Liberia. All right, the lakes, our rivers, our beaches, and our historical sites. The Ministry of Information does not even have a website. This is an institution that is there to project the image of the country.
Yes. And in fact, I'm answering to your point.
All they do is to have the useless press conference says every week to tell us what we already know. That is a penny to us as a country.
Anthony, to your point.
To us as a country.
To your point, Anthony. You were in Niagara Falls. You saw the number of people that were there, and this happens on both sides of the border. Now, in each and every embassy, we should have a tourism attaché there to promote these things if we have them. If you go to the Egyptian embassy, if you go to the Kenyan embassy, if you go to the Ghanaian embassy, they have people there who are promoting these things for them because they already have them in existence. So, it just bothers me to see that.
Thank you.
I mean, it's mind-boggling to say the least.
Yeah, it is, and I hope I will. And Jimmy, do you notice I'm not seeing a same water list this time around? I'm not seeing his list. He's talking about foreign direct investment, HPS. HPS not adding anything to our country.
Anthony.
Yeah.
It's not like we don't have a lot of work to do. But what has been the issue is why are we not making small progress? Each administration should be making small progress toward a goal. But there is so much animosity that we're not thinking about building Liberia itself. Every administration.
I hate to do this. The whole thing about animosity. I mean, that's an excuse again, Jimmy. So tell me. So we have President Bouaka today. Let's say there's someone who has some kind of animosity against him. Is that stopping him from doing what he's supposed to do? I would say no.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Yes,
I'm talking about when you remove
don't like it, he campaign against it. He's doing it. What is stopping it? Whatever we say, I cannot stop him. So that is an excuse, Jimmy. Let the people do
it. If you remove expertise from certain areas, you're starting from zero. when one man go one group there,
Mhm.
and then they bring a new group with new people, and some of the people they're bringing, they don't even know they disciplined.
Then Jimmy, let them bring the new people. We work here. Where I work, someone was there before. Someone got fired, and I came. I got the training. Look, Jimmy. It is not about
No,
animosity.
but did you
Let's
have to rebuild?
look at it this way, Jimmy. We had a Democrat in power. Trump won. Trump is coming. His entire cabinet, the entire U.S. cabinet.
Nothing wrong with the cabinet. I'm not talking about cabinet position. I'm
It's
talking
not
about
from the cabinet level, but
I'm just giving you that as an example because you are saying animosity. There's a new government. Oh, this person was sedition. Or this person was unity party. Let him move from there. That's what you're talking about. I don't think that is the problem. If we have capacity, whoever comes should perform. Our leaders should be able to look for the best and the brightest. We will move the needle. This is not a one-man show. We have people who be in government for over 40 years. Their experiences as bad as you can think. So it's not about removing people or changing people. When we change people, let's bring the best. That's all we have to do.
you have to build knowledge. You have to. Let me give you a clear example.
Mm-hmm.
They complained about Mooney, what's his name? Captain,
only Captain.
who went to LEC. He hasn't been doing very much as they claim. He's getting 17,000 a month, which I'm telling you, for the kind of responsibility of a CEO and all those other portfolios, is really nominal salary when he compared to the West. But it was exorbitant. Okay. But now you're going to change him and bring someone else. That person has a learning curve. For the next 3 years, they will not know what to do.
Jimmy, do we have the right technician in the field? This is your area. Do we have the right technician in the field? I didn't see Money Katan claiming the pole. I didn't see him connecting a single cable to any house whatsoever. Distribution is the problem. What leadership is he providing for the current to be distributed?
Okay, let me give you one more. Maybe this last example. Mm-hmm. You work with an airline, right?
I work with Halfway Airlines, yeah.
Okay, you work with an airline,
mm-hmm.
and every single year, if you check your airline and your company policy, they are training you every single year to do your job better.
That is correct. I get annual training every year.
Okay. I've been in corporate America for 30 years, so I know you're getting that training. Mm-hmm. We don't do that. Okay. We have to continually train our people. The question
is, why are we not doing that? I spoke about it the other day. Why are we not doing that?
Because it has to be important.
So the Money Captain guy you're talking about, was he providing or ensuring that there was regular annual training of the staff at LSC?
That is exactly what he's supposed to be doing.
Did he do that? Did he bring the right people? Did he hire the right people? No, that is the problem. So he was not deserving of 17,000 if he was not up to the task. We can't be sympathetic with development here. We have to move this country forward. Dr. Pearson, let me come to you. Jimmy is not giving it to me. Jimmy is not giving it to me. I want it. Find it and give it to me.
There are two folds to this problem, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'm being... So there's a perfect example with Money Captain, right?
Mm-hmm.
From when you look at the paper on it from a resume level, you would think this guy has a stellar background to run LEC. But does he have the practical experience? No, he doesn't. Matter of fact, the way he got the job was just because he knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody. But in terms of really having practical experience from an electrical standpoint, also the business operations side of things, they were lacking. They weren't there, right? So you just put somebody in who, because you knew somebody, was just there, but doesn't have the money. Even if you don't understand the infrastructure standpoint, right, of electricity, you should be efficient on the business aspect of that, meaning understanding the cost to bring each customer online from each business side. He didn't understand that. There was no data, right? And the absurd thing is that no one held him accountable, not even the board that oversaw what he was doing. None. in terms of, hey, you've been in this role for, let's say, 5 years. We don't have electricity on over the entire, city of Monrovia. Tell us what you are doing specifically year over year to increase capacity. You know, nobody understood that. Neither did he understand that. So nobody was able to hold him accountable. The problem is twofold. Every area of government you go in is a practical experience. Anybody can go to Harvard and get a degree and boast about it. Your favorite senator, Conan, he came here to MIT. He has a MBA from MIT. Does he have the practical experience? In terms of no, just because you have the degree does not mean you have the practical experience to really understand every industry from the fundamental level as well as to the high level. And this is what we've had all along across the country. Every area of the government you go in, every ministry, there's that lack of practicality that exists, and that's what eats us to the ground. And we blame these people, right? On the other side, and I will continue to say this as well. I think we expect so much from government that we forget to look at the private sector as well in terms of you, myself here. What are the what we call areas of opportunity that can be exploited? Now, I know doing business in Liberia is very difficult. It's not for the faint of heart, but we have to be able to look outside of the government. Let me give one perfect example, and I will yield for all of you. What we call the private equity industry in this country, private equity and the hedge funds. Private equity is just meaning someone like you with a lot of money, you come in, Dr. Pearson has a company. You said, Dr. Pearson, you're not running the company properly. You buy it from him. You cut that company out. You get rid of all the efficiency. You boost productivity. And what do? You sell it. You make return, and you go on to the next one. You say, Jimmy, you have a company here. You're not doing so well. You buy Jimmy out. You clear. When that industry started in America, the government had no idea how to even regulate it. Not a clue. This is how Mitt Romney, the famous Mitt Romney who ran for president, that's how he became famous. That's how he ran his money, leverage buyout. It took government time to catch up with that industry to start putting regulation in that industry. Meaning, okay, we understand how you do business now. We don't like you buying company and then firing people and getting rid of them, causing them their job. What I'm trying to say here is that we do not look to government. Sometimes you can start the industry and let government catch up in terms of how they're going to regulate it, right? We have to look at on the private sector side as well. We cannot put all the blame on the government side as well. That's what I'm trying to say here.
Thank you. That is a fair point. We have Dr. George Toto on the line who is enjoying this discussion and will want to contribute. And Dr. Toto, before you come in, look, I believe firmly that somebody may not have technical knowledge in a field, but they can provide leadership. I've seen it.
Yes.
The airline that I work for,
I agree.
or most of the corporation that we work for, the CEOs are not the technical people.
Yep.
But they look for the best technical people so that responsibility is not only our shoulders, they focus on leading the group.
You have to let go of your ego.
That's
Meaning
the
you're
point.
not scared to be surrounded by somebody who's smarter than you to tell you what to do.
Our people
right?
don't know how to succeed. How will you be a president and you appoint a Majabate for urban development in your country and you tell me you are serious? Tell me. We're talking about city planning. Monrovia is already congested. And that man who has been on social media, that is his expertise. That's the man you are looking up to plan our urban areas, to reduce the congestion, open the city and the traffic and everything. That's the man depending on.
Yeah.
So that is the problem. Dr. Toto, your turn. Let's hear from you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Actually, the big great the panelists on the show today. Very good discussion.
Right.
Like you said, the kind of appointment like Europe had already put pay more attention to the appointment like Europe. It just way for people just see their own welfare. But I wanted to talk about the issue of agriculture. And how do we improve the agriculture sector in Liberia? The problem we see right now in Liberia is the human capital or the human capacity. How do we build them? If you look at the present generation right now in Liberia, people don't want to farm. You know, on those days when no farm country, born country, when the bread part of Liberia, those were farmers that live with their parents and pass on from generation to generation. And those who were very successful after the war and they produce a lot of food. But right now, go to Liberia, you see the present generation, Liberia is so populated, and you go to the rural area, people don't want to go up in the rural area. So the government need to create a program and create some mechanism to get people from urban area and take them to the rural area and to farm and give them some incentive. That's the only way we'll be able to improve agriculture. We can do branch dialysis, family. We can carry all the technology in Liberia. And people are trained to use the technology, and people want to go back to the soil, everything will be successful. And then also too, in terms of the banking system providing loan to business centers, I think that one of the setbacks in Liberia, in fact, my dissertation I did on Liberia, the crossing policy. And these are some of the parties I saw in my dissertation while doing my research on Liberia. The banks in Liberia are doing extremely well, but the private and the people don't pay back their loan. And some of the complaints that the real that they don't have a job or they don't have they are not want to pay back the loan. And the bank told huge setback in it. So we can try to improve on the various sectors and try to educate our people on the importance of getting loan and pay back the loan and the going after them. And also the justice system also corrupt. They will now try to implement the law to prosecute those people because the bank as source of report, as source of documentation, and even putting by attendance of my dissertation that some of the bank told the people to quote. At the end of the day, they saw the people walking outside free, and they lose a lot. They lose huge amount of money. So these are some of the things that are affecting our society in Liberia today. We need a serious reform, and I agree with you. We need a strong leadership to be able to move some of those centers just to contribute to the discussion tonight.
Dr. Tudo, thank you so very much for your contribution. Gentlemen, our time is almost gone. I enjoyed the discussion today. Let us just take 2 minutes each to wrap up. Mr. Duclay, let me start with you. Your 2 minutes to close, and I'm watching the time here.
Thank you very much, Anthony, for having me on the program tonight. And I want to say thank you to my fellow panelists. It was a very lively and productive program tonight. You know, Anthony, I really like the topic that we discussed today. And I think these are the topics that really that can really have an impact and I mean meaningful impact on the development of our country, especially the education sector as well as agriculture. And you know, we need to improve. We need to improve, and in order for us to improve, we need the right kind of policies. We need the right kind of leadership. You know, it bothers me to see that you know, in Liberia, our main source of our income from our natural resources is from the mining sector. You know, and yet that even that mining sector is not fully developed. But I hope somebody somewhere is listening to us, and maybe they can take heed to some of the things we are talking about tonight. And also, you know, we have talked a lot about this agriculture. It's about time that we do something instead of talking about it. We need to do something. Now, that's something that we need to do. I'll leave that with the people who are in charge of doing it. Once again, thank you very much for having me on the program tonight.
Thank you so very much, Gabriel.
Yeah, thank you again. Thank you for having me. I know my time here was very short, but you know, for the time being, I think I enjoyed the discussion here. I think this is a conversation that needs to be had, you know, regularly, regardless of the platform. So I'm glad that you took this time to really explore these kind of ideas. Ines, I will close with exactly what I said earlier. I think as a country as a whole, we had the opportunity to reset right after the war in terms of really setting an industrial agenda that is aggressive. I will go directly into the agriculture. So agriculture around the world, if you look at agriculture around the world, the great United States that we live in right now, It is heavily, when I mean heavily, heavily subsidized. The same thing with China. The government subsidize agriculture. We can do the same thing. Now I know there will be forces that will tell you, oh, you can't do that, you can't do that, because no, they've done it. China did it to become the second biggest economy in the world. So we can do the same thing. We can take that playbook right out of their hand to subsidize farmers, to send people back to the farm, to do agriculture, even from an industrial standpoint. We can subsidize that, right? So I say this to say that because when we came out of the war, we didn't have that restart. It wasn't like an innovative leader like the Tarbert who was coming in to say, "This is where we are. This is where we need to get to." Nobody. It was just, "Hey, this person fits the bill. Let's put them on and let's see how things go." This is how we've been for the last 21 years, right? So in order to do that, to get to where we need to get to be competitive in a region before we even think about the globe, we need a president who understands industrialization, meaning you cannot live on resources alone. Those resources will be depleted. Saudi Arabia is running out of theirs, and they're already looking beyond that. So we need somebody who can think from an industrial standpoint and really understand the basic mechanism to get us there. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Pearson?
Thank you, Anthony, for having me tonight. And it was a pleasure being on the panel with my fellow colleagues. I want to say thank you for tonight. And our listeners out there, thank you for being there. And I just want to say, listen, when it comes to education, I want to reiterate that I do believe that training teachers, qualified teachers, and all of that is important. But I want to stress very strongly that we need to practicalize our higher education. And I want to make this clear by saying if we have an agriculture college, it should be hands-on. If we have engineering department, it has to be hands-on. And they should all be a part of a grand scheme of things where the government has projects that they are making these connections with these schools that our kids cannot just be in the classroom, but can connect with practical aspect of things within the country when it comes to building roads, bridges, doing agriculture and stuff like that. Another thing is, I just want to quickly say that, look, we need the National Agriculture and Development Bank in Liberia so that our funding to development can be deliberate and not circumstantial. Like if commercial banks wants to loan, then they may loan if they have it. But government can channel, resources through the bank, the National Agriculture and Development Bank. And last but not the least, because of time, listen, I strongly believe that if we want to be rice sufficient, which is our staple food, it has to be through a legislation, a bill that will be passed into law, and then we can put a timeline on it if we want to. We can have a commission, or we can use the investment commission, whatever the case is. But that bill should come with adequate funding to ensure that agriculture is moved deliberately and intentionally, not with what we're doing right now in our national budget. That's not going to cut it. For me, that's not agriculture at all. It's just putting change in there to just play, do play garden. That's not the kind of agriculture we need to move forward. So yeah, let us be deliberate about this. And invest in agriculture the way we should invest into it. Thank you.
Jimmy, you got a final word?
Yes. Without a doubt, we have the ability to change our trajectory. But it would require something that I don't know if all Liberians share, and that is sacrifice. Everybody is up for getting what they want. But to build a nation, you need to sacrifice for that nation. And until we understand and we collectively agree that we will sacrifice so that Liberia and our posterity, our children's children, will be better off, it's not going to change. It can't it can't change with a selfish mindset. Let me get what I can get now. Every generation has to build for the next generation. And if we're not going to do that, we can talk till our face turns blue. It's not going to happen. We have to be committed to our country, and we have to be willing to sacrifice. It's not only about what you can get, it's about what you can give. And we're not getting that. So that is part of our story. And I agree with leadership that is required, but that leadership has to get people to the point that they want to sacrifice for the country, that they love the country. And that is what is missing. We say we like you say you got your wife or your girlfriend, but you never buy no clothes for her. You only want her to cook for you and do all the things, but you never do nothing for her. That's not how it's going to work. So we will see that one day, the new year coming. We're still hopeful, but we might put in the back of our mind that we have to sacrifice for Liberia to be great. And that's why I will leave it.
Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for coming and sharing your perspective in a serious way about our nation, Liberia. We all need the same thing for our country, development. We want the conditions of our people to be improved. We really do. We need leadership, and we need all hands on deck. If the leaders are not doing it, I will yell at them. I didn't go looking for them. They came around and say, I won't be your leader. And they didn't just say, I won't be your leader. They say, we will do it. We will make it happen. And so for people who can guess, why is Anthony always angry? Do you see the simple logic? I was sitting right here. I didn't go to these people say, can't be. They're the ones say, we want to be your leader, we will do it. And all I'm telling them, hey, you say you are going to do it, do it. The thing that has not been done for all these years, you say you're going to do it. Do it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying anything. I'm not insulting anybody. I'm not disrespecting anybody. I'm just reminding our leaders, do your damn job. You say you will do the job. Do it. Knowledge is not hidden anymore.
Yeah.
It's not hidden. Even if you don't have the knowledge, you can pay somebody to do the job.
Yep.
The homes that we live in here, we didn't build them. People build them. We exercise leadership in our family. I think we need a home as a family. We go into that bank, we'll take that loan, we'll keep that job to make the payment. Mm-hmm. How is that difficult?
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Yeah.
There are road construction companies around the world. Find them. Find the money. Give them the contracts. They will build your roads. And San Wallo is acting like factories are being built in Liberia already. These are all scams. These are all pronouncements that amount to nothing. The last time I heard about overhead bridge from somebody, someone told me, say, during those time they were talking about that same overhead bridge. And I heard it Charles Taylor time. And I heard it Ellen Johnson Sirleaf time. And I heard it Joshua time. I'm hearing it again, President Walker's time. You know how many administrations I just named? 5. We have not had an overhead bridge. Not a single one in Liberia. San Wallo. Is that your first time hearing these things? Is this your first time hearing these things? He's so fascinated about the announcement. The HPA things you're talking about, HPA has no respect for our country. They said they will do business with Guinea. So when you hear the pronouncements start running, it's like our government running all over the place as though they have gotten the $5 million in the compact money. You have not gotten the money. You're impressing on your citizen that there's money coming. Now, when the citizen turn around and say, oh, no, we don't trust you, you are unserious, then you say, oh, they are the problem. Anyway, folks, we have to leave it. Thank you. The song says we are all Liberians, and that song is taking us home. Gentlemen, until I catch you again for another discussion, enjoy your holidays, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our